tell the guys, we're thin but mighty. Anybody that's ever asked about our program over the last few years, I've been saying the same thing. And
Princeton's always been a tough football team. One thing about us is we're going to play tough. We love to hit. Hitting is like preached, and it's like the gospel in Princeton.
I don't want to have all these rules and all these things that you got to try and memorize. Just the word all in. All in.
Football is one of the greatest sports in the world.
It was certainly emotional, no doubt about it. It always is between us and Ocean City.
I don't like losing. The kids don't like losing. And I don't want to lose to the same team over and over and over again. We want to win a state championship.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Cal One-on-One right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, as we continue on with our 2025 high school football season previews. With me today is new veteran. I want to call you a new, but also a veteran coach, Pat Lancetta with Hammonton football. You're back, but for the first time, actually, coach, as a head coach. So you're in a familiar place, but a new era for Hammonton football. So what are the last 6 months been like for you? Now being running, operating things in your light.
Very, very hectic. We have a lot of great things going on, and they're all happening almost at the same time. So it's just like I said, it's just never ending right now. Just touch on a few things that's going on. Obviously, once I took over in January, getting the weight room going, our numbers are really good. Right now, we're holding that 61 JV through varsity players, and we should be into the mid-20s with freshmen. So we got that going. Then we transformed our team house. We're switching weight room to locker room to weight room is what we were going to do. The school was great. The Board of Education, we got basically all brand new equipment that just came in probably like 3 weeks ago. So we had to put all that stuff together and move lockers out, move weight equipment in. So it's just been hectic. And then we had mini camp, and, it just hasn't stopped.
I was going to say, I hope you guys have actually been able to focus on football at some point. But I guess when you get this job now, you came back last year as the offensive coordinator. You're originally in Hammonton, coaching with your brother from the late 80s into the early 2000s before you had a near 2-decade stint over at Rowan University. So I'm curious to see how you guys are now shaping Hammonton football here in 2025. You mentioned all the hectic stuff going on right now at the weight room, just getting, new, I saw you guys have new uniforms as well this year, kind of like an old school flair with like a modern day feel a little bit. Just how have you been able to, I guess, manage all of this, with you and your staff, and I guess you're getting all the kids on board, especially with all these changes coming?
Yeah. And the staff has been big. I kind of told the kids when all this kind of started, I said, it's going to be hectic. I said, we're going to have to kind of work through some things. It's not going to be smooth, but, we're going to make the most of it. The way I look at it, once we get through all this time next year, all we really have to do is focus on football. But my staff, and putting that together, we had a lot of turnover with staff. We're probably almost 3/4 of a new coaching staff. And we're trying to bring back, the style my brother used, kind of old school in the weight room, getting the cards, holding the kids accountable. So, learned a lot from my brother, and we're trying to get back to, and, one of our sayings this year is wake up the echoes. We're trying to get back to old school Hammonton football.
I like hearing that. Your brother Pete, of course, is over at St. Augustine Prep right now, but had a great stint. The two of you, of course, over at Hammonton. So I'm curious, though, because you've been an assistant coach for such a long time. You've been in this profession for such a long time, in education, obviously coaching on the football field. You've seen it at the college level, too, with Rowan just over in West Jersey. Of course, a lot of Cape Atlantic League kids and South Jersey people love, going over right over to Rowan. It's been a great pipeline for this area. Becoming a head coach for the first time, was this something that you anticipated at some point during your coaching career, considering, you were a coordinator over at Rowan on offense and defense? So it's like, were you ever going to be thinking about being a high school coach, or this was just an opportunity that maybe came out of nowhere for you?
It's an opportunity that came out of nowhere. When, we have to go back to Rowan. So when Coach Accorsi stepped down in late spring of 20 24, I had to make a decision. Was I going to go for the job? Was I just going to be an assistant coach there? So that was a decision I had to make. It was a tough decision. I spoke. It was a rough week that went by once Jay stepped down, and then me thinking about the head job, and a lot of sleepless nights. And then it was a Wednesday night. I called my brother. We had a great talk. After that conversation, I decided at that time I was not going to go for the job, and it was like just a big mountain off my back once I made that decision. And then I was just going to be an assistant coach. I called the athletic director that night. I told him I wanted to meet with him the next morning. I was John Giannini. Met with him, Penny Kemp, Gabby Lascelles. They were the assistant ADs. We had a great conversation. He was emotional. And I told him, I was going to be 60 years old. And do I really want to become a college head coach or a head coach anywhere at 60 years old? And the decision was no. So I told him I'd be a loyal assistant at the time. And then all of a sudden, this Hammonton thing opened up. A good friend of mine, Lou Morganwick. Lou and I went to college together at Rowan. And I actually got Lou hired at Hammonton. Lou's going to be in his 30th season at Hammonton. So he's been there a long time. So he calls me up. We hunt together. We play a lot of golf together. So he calls me up and tells me that somebody's going to step down in the phys ed department. So he goes, would you be interested? So I'm like, I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. So then week goes by. So next thing you know, the guy steps down and he goes, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I said, I got to think about it. He goes, well, we don't have time to think about it. I'm like, well, okay. I said, then put my name in. So make a long story short, it happened so fast. Well, then I'm going to come to Hammonton, right, and be a phys ed teacher and assistant coach. And then I go to our athletic director at Rowan. I said, I'll be leaving, at the end of beginning of August, I'll be leaving here. So I was fortunate enough that John put me on the help with the search committee at Rowan. So it was cool. I got to take all the candidates out to breakfast or lunch, talk football. And so that was a neat experience, but that's how it all happened. It started out like a joke. And then next thing you know, I had to get my resume in. I couldn't even find my resume. I haven't used it in so long. So that's how it happened.
That's kind of a wild story. And it's like, hey, it's like one of those things, be careful what you wish for, but now you're in the position you are in now. So I wanted to go back to your time at Rowan real quick, because, you were there for pretty much 20 years at that point. So did you ever envision returning to high school football? And I kind of just to piggyback off the last question, because, you said that job was open to become a college head coach, but then you're like, I don't want to be a college head coach at this stage of my coaching career. But did you envision yourself, I'm just going to finish my career as a college assistant coach, we'll take Rowan as far as we can go, and that's pretty much it? Did you ever envision yourself coming back to high school?
Never. Nope. Not at all. I just figured, I was going to, because, when I got into college, Mark Hendricks, who's now the head coach at Kingsway, he's the one that hired me at Rowan as a part-time assistant on the defensive side of the ball. And then, then he left in 08, and then the DC job was open, and Jay, coach, of course, he asked me if I wanted it, talked it over with my wife, and I took it. So then all of a sudden I was at DC for a long time. And then Jay asked me if I would move to offense, and I did it. And no, I did not anticipate coming back to high school. And the reason I didn't want to be a college head coach at 60 years old, I didn't want to live by my telephone. You know what I mean? That, college kids, it's a lot different in college than it is in high school. I didn't want to get that phone call 3 a.m. in the morning, or, God forbid, something happened, somebody did something, do I really want to do that? So, and I was fine. And I used this in a couple articles that I did. I was fine being Robin and not Batman. So I was that for so long. And believe me, I don't have an ego. So it didn't matter to me running a program. If you talk to my brother, I was a big part of a lot of his wins at Hammonton. Him and I worked very closely together. I was fortunate enough that he came with me for a few years to Rowan when he did step down at Hammonton. So that was really neat, to get him into the college profession. But, it was awesome. Like I said, I was fine being an assistant coach.
Yeah. Did you ever consider, and I know you already told the story about how the Hammonton job basically said, how it opened up and, you came back as assistant, now you're the head coach, but was there ever a thought in your head where during that time where you were contemplating leaving Rowan and now actually coming back to high school football, did you think about maybe, hitting up your brother Pete and saying, hey, maybe I'll just join the St. Augustine prep staff at this point, or was it always Hammonton in your mind?
No, the Hammonton thing, and trust me, I could have went to St. Augustine and to be an assistant coach a long time ago. The funny thing is, and Pete will tell you this too, and when he comes to our game, when he came to our games at Rowan, when I'm at a St. Augustine game, I'm more nervous at that game than I am my own. And I think my brother would probably say the same. So there was many times where I'm on the sideline, and next thing you know, I see something and I can't help myself, and I walk over to the sideline and give him a suggestion. And when he came to Rowan games, he'd do the same thing for me. Last year, I was fortunate enough to go with him to his 2 state playoff games. The Del Barton game was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What a great win for them to upset the number 4 team in the state, and then to go to Don Bosco was really neat. I've never been up there to watch those high schools play. But it was a snowy night, and Don Bosco was just the better team. So it was cool.
I'll ask you this now, just to circle back to Hammonton. So you were there from '89 to 2002 before a quick year over at Absegami as well before Rowan. When you look back at that time when you and Pete were trying to get this program rolling back in '89, of course, different era of football. But I know you mentioned you wanted to get back to that old school approach and like the old ways of Hammonton to usher into the new era. What do you find similar from 1989 compared to 2025 as you rebuild this program?
Well, the record. We took over in 1989. The record wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
The number of students playing football wasn't high, and so that's the similar part. And I told our players from the first meeting, when my brother took over in 1989, it was tough. And I told the kids, we looked ugly in uniform, and I showed them a picture. The uniforms were hanging off our guys. And I believe I think the number's correct. I think we went into the first game with 28 football players, but they were 28 football players that we knew that we can go to war with. Mm-hmm. And I told the team this year, they still have no idea of what they're getting into. We had a little mini camp, so they got a little taste of it, but they don't have any idea about what they're getting into. Now, my coaching staff does, because I have a lot of foreign players, which we'll get into later, and guys that I've coached with, so they understand that. So I told my guys, whoever survives, and if we get 20 guys, then I know we got 20 guys that we can go to war with, and I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. And in that 1989 year, there was only one game. We were 2-7. There was only one game that we got blown out, and that was against Buna when they were running the triple option. Chuck Donahue had a great team. That was the only game we got blown out, but we didn't know how to win. So we would lose by a field goal, we lose by 6 points, but our kids just didn't know how to win. They were just they were losing there for a little bit. So that's the thing. It's got to teach kids, how to practice, and then what it takes to win.
I like that philosophy, and of course, it's something that you can always carry over into the new era. So we'll dive into a little bit more of 2025 in just a sec. We'll take a quick break. This is Cal One-on-One right here on Cape Atlantic Live.
This broadcast is brought to you by Harbor Jiu-Jitsu. Located in Egg Harbor Township, Harbor Jiu-Jitsu is more than just training. Both adults and kids can gain practical skills that give you real confidence, build physical and mental resilience, and you can join a team that's here to help you grow. Featuring no gi, wrestling, and MMA classes, Harbor Jiu-Jitsu is the most dynamic gym in South Jersey. For more information, check out harborjiujitsu.com.
So when we look at 2025, Coach, the offensive and defensive philosophy, I know Hammonton at one point was a big wing T influence. You mentioned the triple option from Buna back in 1989, of course, the early 90s as well. What kind of, I'll start with offense first. What kind of offensive approach do you want to bring to the table in 25? Is it more of that run-heavy approach, mixing the passing game with that wing T, or are we going to the more modern-day styles of some other teams with a more of a spread offense?
It's the same system that we ran at Rowan, and the same one we attempted to run last year. You want to call it something. We're an RPO offense. We're a run pass option offense, which we did at Rowan. It's going to be that similar style, but you got to be able to run the football, to win in high school. We need to get more physical on both sides of the ball, and we need to be more physical as a team. I think that's what the one thing we have to really come out of training camp and guys understanding. We got to have 11 guys on both sides of the ball that just love contact. We just got to get physical. And but offensively, we're gonna, the whole saying, take what the defense gives you. It's a simple offense. Once we start talking about players, I could get into that, but that'll be our style.
I like that. Is there anybody that's already stood out to you on the offensive side of the ball, whether it's some guys that are coming back from last year's squad that have taken the next step, or maybe even some newcomers for Hammonton that people should watch out for on offense?
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We have 3 quarterbacks that we're going to go into training camp with. One of them is Rocco Jacoby. Rocco didn't play last year he transferred to Williamstown, didn't work out there, came back to us at Hammonton. It was too late for him to play, so he sat out last year. He's going to be a junior, live arm, big time arm. Then we have Cole Landicini. Cole was a freshman last year. He actually started at strong safety. Great kid. I mean, he is your prototypical football player. Actually got a little quarterback action last year as a freshman. So he'll be battling it. And Luca Piera he'll also be a sophomore. So we'll have a junior battling and 2 sophomores battling that quarterback. So they, all 3 did a nice job. I thought Rocco did a good job of picking up the system in a couple days that we had offense. Wide receiver wise, I like our group. They'll be led by a senior, Ethan Peterson. He couldn't be at the mini camp. He was at I think they call it the Boys State thing at Rider College for the week, so he was there. Of course, Vento, Tyler Vento, he'll be a junior. Tyler is going to play little slot receiver, and you could see him in the backfield. But I thought he had a real good mini camp. So very, very excited about him. The backfield is going to be inexperienced. Right now, probably leading the way is a young man that is that's going to be a sophomore, JoJo. He'll be a sophomore. Has really transformed his body in a tremendous way. Really leaned out. Really has gotten thicker. So we're excited about him. We're going to experiment a little bit with Cooper Delgazzo. Cooper played a little tight end H-back. He's got really good feet. He's fast, real tough kid, real physical kid. So we're going to explore him because of and he's going to be a senior just because of our, we are a little thin there. So they're the guys stood out up front. I think we got some good linemen. Got a couple seniors. Gabe Wainer, who he actually got hurt in the first game last year, couldn't play. Then we have Alex Brunges. Alex is probably the strongest kid on our team. Really strong lower body, upper body. Really good there. And then we'll have some younger kids battling out with them. Also, it's we're going to have a good battle at center. We're not sure yet who's going to be that guy. We have Rami Cooley, who's going to be he'll be a junior. He'll battle out. Chase Lentz, he's going to be a sophomore. He'll be one of the guys. Angel Arvizu, big, thick kid. So, we're going to have some good battles. I'm very excited about our tight end group, led by Stephen Ruff. Stephen reminds me of a young man that we had at Rowan, C.J. Barrett. C.J. came to Rowan as a quarterback. And then, just with the quarterbacks we had, I didn't think he was ever going to, get a shot to play there. So we had talk. He had great hands. So we moved him to tight end and had a stellar career. He was, not your prototypical big slammer tight end, but what's great about him is you could line him up on the ball and you also could line him outside. And that's the same thing with Steven. Steven reminds me, exactly. He's got great hands. So you could be an 11 personnel and he could play slot. He could be the single receiver side. So very excited, about that.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good. And I would imagine because of all the youth and, a lot of these guys have experience already, but you're also relying on some younger guys this year on offense. I would imagine it's the same thing on defense. And of course, anytime I think of Hammonton, the first thing I think of is like, all right, the offensive line is big, the defensive line is big, and they may be big, but they're very fast. So what kind of defensive approach are you guys taking here in 2025? Is it more of I'm not going to say a finesse type defense. Is it more just like we're going to plug up the middle, force you guys to maybe go to the outside, then try to beat you with our sideline speed?
We are going to be a simple defense. My philosophy when I was a DC at Rowan was keep it simple and let our guys play. My philosophy is if you have guys thinking on defense, they got no shot. They got no shot of being successful. That's just my opinion. Yeah. I kept our defensive coordinator from last year, Eric Schulman. I think Eric is a tremendous coach. And when him and I sat down, I just let him know. I said I want to run the same system we ran at Rowan. And the main reason was it was successful. It was simple. And the other thing is I want to be able to help on the defensive side of the ball. I'm going to be calling the plays on offense. And we'll talk about our assistant coaches because they're going to be very big in this also. But I also want to be able to hear what's going on and understand the verbiage and not me having to learn, a different verbiage. So it's the same defense that we ran at Rowan, the same terminology. Very fortunate. A player of mine, Kurt Kingett, who played for me at Rowan, was one of our free safeties, just an awesome player. And he also was coaching at Rowan. He was a DB coach there for 7 years. Kurt left. I caught wind of this. He left after this season. And then as soon as I heard that, I got right on the phone, and Kurt is going to coach our DBs. So, listening to him, it was awesome at practice this week. Awesome because I'm actually coaching defense too. I'm coaching a position. I'm coaching the defensive ends. So I'm excited about that. But just to hear Kurt, coaching up our kids and the terminology and just his style. And Eric Schulman has been nothing but tremendous with it. We sat down, bounced things off each other, and it's been such a smooth transition, and he has been fantastic with that. So we're gonna be simple and keep the game in front of us. Don't give up big plays. That's the biggest thing. The one thing when I was a defensive coordinator at college, and it's true, offensive coordinators aren't going to just nickel and dime you down the field. They have too big of egos to do that. They want that quick strike stuff, and it's hard.
Right.
So to me, give up a 5-yarder. We can live off of that. You give up a home run touchdown. Well, there is no next play.
Right.
So my thing is just keep the game in front of us, come up and be real good tacklers, and I think we'll be okay.
I do like the fact that you've brought on former players of yours, whether it was at Hammonton or Rowan, of course, fellow staff members in the same vein, and it all kind of meshes together with your current staff right now. I wanted to give you a moment just to honor Coach Robert Federico. I know he was a tremendous part of the Hammonton community. I believe his kids played the entire way through Hammonton. I recognize the name, and I believe they even wrestled too. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I think they grew up around the same time as when I was going through high school as well. I just want to give you a moment to say a few words about him and just really what kind of impact he had on the Hammonton football community and basically the community at large.
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that up because I was going to bring it up later in our conversation. Just a tremendous loss to Hammonton. To Hammonton football. I mean, just a just a legend at the youth organization. I mean, that was his life. His life was coaching football, raising his son, has an awesome wife. Here's the deal. When you get in this profession, I don't care what level, you got to have a tremendous wife to be by your side, because very rare are you home. But Bobby, like I said, just you talk about old school. He was an old school football coach. Discipline, physicality, was a big Alabama fan. Just like I said, just words. It's just devastating for our community, devastating for the Hammonton Hawks. Like I said, just a true legend. And like I said, just an old school warrior that coached for free. I don't know how many. I know I'd be lying. A lot of years, a lot more than I've been coaching. I can tell you that. So it just a tremendous loss. Our prayers are out to his family. We will honor Coach Federico this year with his initials on our helmet. And also, we also lost another Hammonton alum, Ron Dorsey's dad, Ron Sr., passed away this year. So two tremendous players, people from our community, and we will honor Big Ronnie too with his number on our helmet this year. So and it's the same. It gets back to I told you, bring it back the old school Hammonton. Yeah, I want the alumni and every alumni that I see, I want them to come talk to our players, and just be around us. That's what I want. We just had our golf tournament a few weeks ago. Tommy Crosby, stud receiver back in the day for my brother, went to the University of Delaware, lives down in Washington, D.C. So once the tournament came up, I reached out to him just to, when I got the job, let him know I got the job, and he was happy. And I told him about the golf tournament, and he came up and played in my group. And what an awesome experience. But that's what I want to bring. And like I said, Bobby will never be forgotten. I actually told his wife last night when I saw her, we're going to make him proud of Hammonton football this year. I told her that, and I also told his son that last night. We're going to make them proud of Hammonton football.
Tremendous figures in the Hammonton community for sure, on and off the field. Looking forward to seeing those tributes throughout the season. Coach, I appreciate your time, and I'll leave you here with this one. You alluded to it before, and I guess it's a way to get back to that old school mentality. I can kind of infer based on your phrasing. So I do ask every coach, what's the phrase or word that your team's going to buy into this season? You already mentioned it, wake up the Echoes. And I know it's plastered on your new team gear, your social media right now. Just a little bit for the listening audience too, what does that mean for Hammonton, wake up the Echoes?
Like I said, just get back to the basics. You know what I mean? Just get back to the basics, and get physical. I mean, you gotta be a physical football player on both sides of the ball. We got to stay within our system. Offensively, if one guy misses an assignment, the play's not going to work. Now, defensively, you can get away with that. You got a real stud out there. He can make up for your deficiencies. But that's it. Just get back to old school football. And the other thing is, I want to have a relationship with my players. If you look at our staff and the guys that have come with me, that means a lot to me. We've gotten younger on the staff. I'm 60 years old. Who knows how much longer I'm going to be coaching, but who knows? But I want to get that next guy ready. But I want a relationship. I told the guys when I first met them, I want them, they can't go by me in the hallway without saying hello. They can't go by me in the morning on my duty without saying hello. I want to talk to them. I want to talk to them about hunting. I want to talk to them about basketball, whatever they want. I want that relationship. And I think it's so important. It's nothing like it. My Rowan guys, the old Hammonton guys, it's just great, hearing from them and their support and their love and all that stuff. But that's what I want. I want, this team to understand that.
I'm already getting fired up for football season when it comes to the Hammonton Blue Devils. Coach, I appreciate your time today. Good luck this season. Season opener, I believe, is August 28th against Franklin. Correct me if I'm wrong?
Yes, sir. All
right, that'll be it. August 28th versus Franklin. Hammonton opens up the 2025 season. New era, waking up the Echoes with Coach Pat Lancetta right here on Cal 101. Coach, thank you again for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Nick.
Cal One-on-One right here is presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. Be sure to check out the rest of our content on Cape Atlantic Live on the YouTube channel for the rest of our podcast. And, of course, our live games coming this fall, once again, on YouTube. We'll see you next time.